Rod Association. Championship drag racing. Moments ago, this woman, the three-time world champion in Top Fuel Eliminator, Shirley Muldowney, in the first round of competition here at the 14th Annual Gatornationals in Gainesville, Florida, was racing this man, Jim Bernard, the winner of the Top Fuel Eliminator title at the World Finals last year. It was on this run that Shirley recorded the fastest speed ever, over 257 miles an hour.
A lot of years we waited for this one. They were happy. Shook a little bit, and it's a clean motor.
But where did the 257 come from? And that's a tremendous leap.
Up on the tire real fast. We're running a Goodyear 2600, and I think that's going to be the tire of the year.
Just a few minutes after that, in the first round of funny car competition, Gary Bergen in the near lane was racing Kenny Bernstein. Gatornationals history was made on this run as Bergen recorded the low elapsed time of this year's event and established an all-time Gainesville Raceway track record of 5.78 seconds to cover the quarter mile. The Gatornationals always provides the fans with a dramatic moment. This year in Super Gas qualifying, Mickey Thompson of Ohio, named after the legendary drag off-road and Bonneville racer, left the starting line and found himself out of control. Thompson's Chevy Vega started to spin out, first to the left, then to the right, then the rear tire buckled under, and the car began a series of barrel rolls, taking it right up to the guardrail. Right after the crash, we had a chance to talk with an obviously shaken Mickey Thompson.
Just remember heading for the right guardrail and trying to turn it back, and that's all I remember.
Thanks to the stringent rules and safety requirements of NHRA for all classes of cars in competition, an uninjured Mickey Thompson is able to wonder what happened. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and we are here for the 8th consecutive year of Diamond P Sports coverage of the NHRA Gatornationals. As always, working with me is automotive expert and drag racing enthusiast Steve Evans.
Well, thank you, David. As you know, the Gatornationals has about everything you could ask for in a drag race. Over 600 cars were entered, racing for some $600,000 in the Gatornationals titles. Now, the crowd behind me, and I mean, they have jammed this Gainesville Raceway, these Atlantic Coast fans. This is their first look at all that's new for 1983, and believe me, there is plenty. I had a chance early to talk to the reigning world champions in Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock about how they felt their season would shape up. Tell me how you feel going into this early season after such a tremendous 1982.
We feel good about it. I'm happy that I have a new Swindle car, even though the 82, I know a lot of people that would like to campaign that car. But I think on this circuit, this is where we're happy. This is where we feel at home. The conditions are real good. It's fair for everyone. Everyone has an equal chance. It's what we like to do.
Lee, your first championship came very, very hard. It came down the last race of the year. However, last year, by mid-season, you had run away with it. The title chase was over. Is it going to be that easy this year?
Well, I don't think so, Steve. Frank Iconio's running awful fast. He's run quite a bit faster than he was last year. So we expect to have a lot of competition this year.
How has becoming world champion changed your life?
Oh, a lot of people want to talk to me now. They want to hang out with me. Before they didn't. So I like that. It's inspired us to run for the rest of the year. I mean, we've realized that we can do it now. It was something that everyone always thought couldn't happen by an underdog team, and we proved it can happen. I think it's helped a lot of other people, too, just with their attitudes, you know.
The reigning world champions ready for the Gatornationals. The 1983 Gatornationals are being brought to you by McGuire's Car Wax. For over 50 years, McGuire's quality waxes and polishes have been the choice of car care professionals. And by Goodyear, makers of Eagle high-performance radials and Wrangler all-season radials for light trucks. And by Budweiser, the king of beers and proud sponsor of the U.S. Olympic team. For all you do, this Bud's for you. Top Fuel Racing at the Gatornationals coming up next. At the Gatornationals at Gainesville Raceway in Gainesville, Florida, we're getting ready for round number 2 racing in Top Fuel Eliminator. The first car we see driven by Jody Smart. These Top Fuel cars, over 240 inches in wheelbase, engines producing over 2,500 horsepower. Smart will be racing Connie Kalita. In this second round action, Jody Smart from San Antonio, Texas, finishing in the runner-up spot a number of times, while Connie Kalita, a true veteran of the sport, his career dates back to its start in 1958. Last season, Kalita, winner of 2 NHRA national event titles, while Jody Smart has yet to take home his first NHRA title. Both cars off the mark together, and it is Smart. But no, Connie Kalita comes from behind and takes the win, 5.71 seconds. His speed, 248 miles an hour. Kalita moving into the semifinals at the Gatornationals by virtue of this win, has our next pair already ready to go. The Donnell brothers into agribusiness up in the Central California Valley area. Danny Donnell, the driver. His competition, another agribusinessman, Larry Miner from San Jacinto, California. Both Miner and Donnell are somewhat new to the driving chores in championship drag racing. For Donnell, it was a switch from sand dragging. That's racing on the sand in Southern California. For Larry Miner, it was a move from being a car owner to a car driver. This marks the second major event competition for Miner. He has been very successful in his move to the driver's cockpit. Steve Evans is with Connie Kalita.
That was a good drag race with Jody Smart.
Yes, it was. I looked over there and he was right there. I didn't know who won in the other end.
Oh, you did. The wind lights blinking in your lane.
Thank you.
The crafty veteran Connie Kalita heading back to the pits to get ready for the semifinal round. We're still in the second round of racing, and Larry Miner making the switch to the driving chores very easily. He qualified well at the recent Winter Nationals in Southern California, also qualified very well here at the Gatornationals. For Danny Donnell, he was a recent upset victor over Shirley Muldowney at a regional race in California. Recording a 5.66 second elapsed time, Donnell earned a lot of respect in winning that race. But here at the Gatornationals, it's the one that gets to the finish line first that advances to the semifinals. Danny Donnell against Larry Miner. They're side by side at the start, but look at Miner pull away. And Larry Miner records the second quickest elapsed time in history at 5.51 seconds. His speed over 246 miles an hour. And now moments ago, run faster than anyone in history, Shirley Muldowney. Shirley will be racing against the longtime superstar Gene Snow from Fort Worth, Texas. Shirley, an unprecedented 3 Top Fuel world titles to her credit, while Gene Snow coming back after a several-year layoff into Top Fuel racing. Snow has his work cut out for him as he had difficulties during qualifying, finally making this super tough field. But Shirley recording that blistering 257-mile-an-hour charge in the first round of racing is definitely the favorite here as we advance through the second round. Shirley has recorded more 5-second elapsed time runs in competition than any other driver, and Gene Snow knows it as he gets ready to do battle, trying to advance to the semifinals. The crew making the final preparations as Shirley and Gene Snow square off at the starting line. It's a matter of concentration, and Shirley is one of the best. She has, for the past several years, been the premier dragster driver. And it is concentration and her ability to get off the line, but it looks like Gene Snow left first, but Shirley Muldowney not to be denied. 5.67 seconds, 249 miles an hour. As it is Shirley going into the semifinals, we watch again. You saw Gene Snow move first. That very rarely happens to Shirley Muldowney. As we advance down the quarter mile, the engine goes away for Gene Snow, and Shirley Muldowney wins it. Steve Evans is with Shirley right now.
So Shirley Muldowney just keeps knocking them off. She's undefeated here going into her third year at the Gatornationals, 5.67.
That's decent for the way it shook out there, any mile an hour.
I didn't hear the mile an hour, but I did see a lot of smoke in the lights.
Yeah, I think it caught one or maybe two in the lights, so I'm sure the mile an hour was down.
All right. By catching one, she means a couple of pistons may have been burned. They're easily changed.
Steve, it shows you how advanced drag racing has become when we talk about changing a couple of pistons in just about an hour. Gary Beck roaring back to the starting line. Gary is the low qualifier here at the Gatornationals, as he has been at the last 6 national events, but a long time since a win. His competition, Richard Tharp of Dallas, Texas, coming back after a year's layoff, driving for a new team of owners, Kilpatrick and Cannell. Tharp is regarded by many as one of the finer drivers in the sport of championship drag racing, and certainly one of the most colorful personalities in any form of motorsports. Richard, a former world champion, a former national champion, has got his work cut out for him, though, as he is racing Gary Beck, part of a 2-car team. His car owner, Larry Miner, now driving, and Steve talked to them earlier.
This is the quickest top fuel dragster in the world at 5.48 seconds. Right next to it sits another blue car, the second quickest top fuel dragster in the world at 5.52 seconds. And they're both owned by the same man from Hemet, California, Larry Miner. Now, Larry, you've still got Gary Beck driving, but now you're driving too. How did this all come about?
Well, I've always wanted to drive one of these cars. I've driven all the other race cars that I've owned, and this winter gave us a good chance for me to get my license, and Gary worked with me, and we just planned on going to one national event, but I liked it so well, and the car's running good. I kind of got the bug right now.
You know, it was hard enough to drive for it. Now you may even have to race him to boot.
Yeah, we might. That's probably one of our least of our worries is racing the 2 cars together. But as it happens at the present moment, we're qualified on the same side of the ladder. It could come together, which would be fine. That would mean both cars are doing well.
Gary Beck not worrying about what's coming up. He's worried only at the race of the moment, and that is against Richard Tharp in the Kilpatrick and Cannell car. Both cars coming into the staging beams. A great start for both drivers. Tharp drifting towards the center line. They're almost side by side, and it is Gary Beck, and look at that, a new national record. 5.49 seconds. His speed over 252 miles an hour, and Richard Tharp acquitting himself very well. This is the closest side-by-side race in history, with Gary Beck going 5.49 seconds. Richard Tharp with a motor going away at the finish line at 5.63 seconds. So Gary Beck moves into the semis against Larry Miner. Here's Steve.
This is turning out to be a heck of an afternoon for the Larry Miner Gary Beck team. That is the new national record, 5.49.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, we're real happy. I'll tell you, the cars are running just great. Larry's doing a terrific job of driving, and we tried a few things at Pomona, with some experiments, and we went back and we just made them exactly the same as best we could, and they're running just fine.
This could be called the dream race, as Gary Beck faces off against his car owner Larry Miner, while Shirley Muldowney races her former crew chief Connie Kalita here at the Gatornationals. Funny cars, they're coming up next. We're back at the 14th annual NHRA Gatornationals at Gainesville Raceway near Gainesville, Florida, getting set for round number 2, racing in Funny Car Eliminator. A funny car, that tubular chassis creation, carrying an engine very similar to the top fuel racers, over 2,500 horsepower, but encased in a fiberglass replica body of a late model American or foreign car. The interesting point here, the driver sitting behind all that nitro-burning horsepower. The funny cars, like all cars in competition, do those long, smoky burnouts. The burnout actually getting the tires spinning fast enough where it burns the rubber and gets the tires very hot. Raymond Beadle, the former world champion, is matched in his first race of round number 2 against Frank Hawley, the reigning world champion, proudly bearing number 1 on the side of the Chi-Town Hustler. Frank Hawley competing last season for the first time in a full series of events. Raymond Beadle, a 3-time world champion. He won the title 3 years in a row. But there's problems right now. It looked like the start of the Gainesville Marathon, but they're running down track, having to push back by hand the Blue Max car of Raymond Beadle. Frank Hawley patiently waiting, backing up, getting set to do another short burnout as the crew pushing this car, weighing about 1,900 pounds, pushing it back in its own tracks. Apparently the reverser is broken, and he was unable to back up under his own power. Frank Hawley getting the word, bring it up to the starting line. They're just now nearing the starting line, and this crew is getting tired. It's a tough push from about 400 feet down the racetrack to push one of these cars back with the engine idling. It's trying to go forward as the centrifugal type clutch trying to pull ahead, but it's Raymond Beadle back at the starting line. The Blue Max has made it. There will be a race against Frank Hawley. Had he taken much longer, Hawley might have had a single, but Beadle is giving him what he can. Beadle a bit out of shape, and Frank Hawley wins the second round, and the crew, dead tired to start with, watches their driver go down to defeat Frank Hawley. Tired crew, looks like, as the Blue Max crew heads down track. Our next pair gets ready to go. Mike Dunn at the wheel of the Hawaiian against John Brute Force. Roland Leong, the owner of the Hawaiian. Mike Dunn, the driver, a second-generation drag racer. Let's go now to Steve.
Yeah, it's on the tires. Raymond had some problem getting back. We sat there for a long time, and you start to wonder if it's gonna spin the tires. And it did a bit. I pedaled it, and I don't know what it run, but it was good enough to beat the blue car. 93. Well, that's not bad, and I think we're still looking at winning this whole race.
Consistency, again, the Chi-Town motto.
Well, that's what it is, and last year, Shirley said something about Garland, saying, well, she says, that's a little premature, and I'm not being premature, I'm just being optimistic.
A very optimistic Frank Hawley, we might add, as he is the defending champion here at the Gator Nationals. John Force against Mike Dunn, the next race we'll be watching. Force out of Southern California, one of the stronger racers on the circuit, has qualified very well for this event down in the 580s. His competition, the second-generation drag racer, Mike Dunn, the son of Big Jim Dunn. Now the driver for the Hawaiian, having won several NHRA national event titles in the past couple of years, driving Roland Leong's newest creation, the Hawaiian. The burnouts are completed, both drivers staging very carefully. You see John Force creeping into the light beams across the starting line, signifying he's ready to go. He gets the whole shot, but it's a red light for John Force. Mike Dunn goes up in smoke, and John Force explodes an engine just as he passes through the lights. The fire rolling out from under the car. He spins it out down in the shutoff area. Fortunately, Mike Dunn had shut it off way early. Here you see the emergency hatch coming open. Let's hope that John Force can get out of that car. There we see him climbing up. The emergency crew already on the scene, dousing him with water. John Force rolling off of the top of the car, taking off his fire protective gloves. And what a wild ride for John Force. A tough break as not only he red lights, but as you see again, explodes the engine. Look at the fire coming out from underneath and behind the car. The parachute trying to slow it down. And now the parachute goes the way as the flames burn away the shroud lines. Now the fire really coming up, carrying the onboard fire extinguisher. You notice very little, if any, fire inside the cockpit where the driver is. That's the purpose of that fire extinguishing compound. A tremendous driving job by John Force, and I'm sure he is shaken up And we'll find out as we go to Steve Evans.
John, you okay?
Fine, Steve.
Again, the safety equipment. What would you do without it?
Saved my butt. What could you do?
When we saw the white smoke, that's when the fire bottles hit, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Saved me. I love it.
Did you have any idea where you were on the course?
Just from the steering wheel, because the front end was staying intact, and it was a little bit sideways, and Roland must have done a good job because he didn't ram me, because I know I crossed him a little bit. And I could see him when it turned sideways, the fire cleared some, and God, I can't believe I red lighted up there.
I didn't know that either. In fact, you just told me. That's the first time I've known that. Cars, we can replace. Good guys like you, we can't. I'm really glad to see you're okay. Everybody is.
Thank you.
Steve, you can see the disappointment as you found out as John Force, realizing not only did he have a very expensive blower explosion, he red-lighted to lose the race, meaning he left the starting line too early. Our next pair, just coming out of the water, we find Gary Bergen. We saw him a little bit earlier establishing that track record of 5.78 seconds. He's running against Tom Anderson. Bergen, a former national champion, with that 5.78 seconds, certainly puts him up in the top of the class of funny car racers at the moment. For Tom Anderson, he had the same problems as you see some scorch marks on the back of the car, the same problems that John Force did earlier in qualifying. You see Tom Anderson driving for Alan Aronek and Jim Ouimet all over the racetrack. The car slowing and then exploding. The supercharger exploding. You see the injector unit hanging by its fuel lines. The fire burning behind the parachute already. The shroud line's gone. Tom Anderson bringing the car thus far to a straight stop. It's starting to bounce just a bit. Those huge rear tires acting like a rubber ball bouncing. And now he spins it out with the injector standing straight in the air. The smoke and fire rolling off the back of the car. Tommy Anderson doing a great driving job to bring this car to a safe stop. And there's Anderson rolling out of the emergency hatch, and he hits the ground and gets away. Steve had a chance to talk with him after the fire.
Where did you hit the onboard fire extinguishers?
As soon as it blew up, I just grabbed the brake and just squeezed them.
Let's take a look, if we can, at the boots real quick down here. Tommy, show us. God bless them, huh?
They work.
The fire protective devices required by NHRA, the onboard fire extinguishing systems, and those driver suits protecting the driver in case of two very serious fires. But Tommy Anderson got it repaired overnight. He's up against Gary Bergen, and Bergen up in smoke. Tom Anderson, the motor's starting to go away again. How much mechanical breakage can this team stand? 6 seconds flat, 235 miles an hour. It is Tom Anderson moving into the semifinals, defeating the track record holder and the man that held low elapsed time at 5.78 seconds going into this round. Our next race already fired, the sleek black machine out of North Hollywood, California, bearing only the name Little John Lombardo down the side. One of the strongest racers on the West Coast, up against the traveling pro, Dale Poldy, teamed with partner Mike Hamby in the Warrior. Poldy, one of the fastest funny car drivers in the world, and previously held the NHRA national record. For John Lombardo on the national trail this season, qualified very well in the high 80s. So it is Dale Poldy to go against John Lombardo. Here, the final race of round number 2 in Funny Car Eliminator at the Gatornationals. Here are the lights at the top of the Christmas tree indicating when they're all 4 lit that the drivers are ready to go, and the green light comes on. John Lombardo against Dale Poldy. Poldy seeming to pull ahead at the middle of the race, but it is a close race to the finish as Poldy wins it 6.02 seconds. His speed 241 miles an hour. The semifinals are set for Funny Car. It'll be the world champion, Frank Hawley, against the Hawaiian, Mike Dunn. Dale Poldy against Tom Anderson here at the Gatornationals. Day in the Connie Kalita pit area. Steve?
I tell you, I wish my local garage mechanic could see what's going on in Connie Kalita's pits, because he wouldn't believe it. The Kalita car was ready to come down off the jack and go to the staging lanes to meet up with Shirley Muldowney. But they found a leaking exhaust valve after the entire engine had been reassembled, and they were done, they thought. Now it is coming apart again, and will they have time is the big question now to get it fixed.
We'll be keeping an eye on all the action in the Kalita pit area, but up at the starting line, this overflow crowd is looking on as the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator gets ready to go. It is Bob Glidden at the wheel of the Ford Thunderbird. That's the 83 version against Lee Shepard driving the Rare and Morrison Camaro. The Chevrolet of Lee Shepard, the world champion for the second year in a row. Bob Glidden, the winningest driver in all of drag racing history with a total of 35 wins to his credit, is wheeling this new Ford Thunderbird, the 83 version. These are gasoline-burning cars, 500 cubic inch engines, and they are off the starting line. It is a close race. At the finish line, it is Lee Shepard in the Camaro. With a speed of over 181 miles an hour, Shepard wins it. The classic and highly popular Chevrolet versus Ford match up again in the semifinals. Frank Iaconio, number 2 in the world last season, at the wheel of his bright yellow Camaro against the red and white Ford Thunderbird 83 version of this man, Ricky Smith. Ricky, in his second full season of NHRA National Event Competition, making it to the semifinals, the race number 2 in the world last year and recent winner of the Winter Nationals, Frank Iaconio. The concentration begins to build as both drivers, having finished their burnouts, get themselves mentally prepared to leave that starting line as quickly as possible without leaving a red light. Rolling forward ever so carefully, both cars come into those light beams. When it's that, starter Buster Couch throws the switch, and it's a green light. Off the line first and with a bit of a lead in the middle of the track, it is Frank Iaconio. He extends it to win the race over Ricky Smith. It'll be an all-Chevrolet final. Frank Iaconio against Lee Shepard. Steve?
We're down in Tom Anderson's pits, and there's a bit of good news, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It looks like we can fix it anyway.
So a lot of that smoke we saw was what, the tire rub in the body?
Yeah, because when we had to fire it, the body kind of sagged on the car, and the tire rubs it now.
I heard you guys say that you back-sided 3 pistons. Why don't you show us what that means with this piston here?
Okay, a back-sided piston means that on the reverse side of the piston, it gets hot and pushes the rings down and puts black death all over. You see all this scuff all over here is not supposed to be there.
That's black death?
That's black death.
Well, this is not a severely burned piston. I've seen them just melted.
No, this one's not bad at all. This is normal for fuel racing.
They come out sometimes where they wouldn't even make a good ashtray.
That's true. It won't even hold ashes.
Steve, a great attitude for a team that's had a lot of trouble this weekend. Here at the Gator Nationals, we've had things going to all the champions. Bubba Sewell Association, Wally Park.
Thank you, David. Wally, we're always impressed with the growth of this sport from year to year. But looking around here in Gainesville, I'd have to say that NHRA has taken a giant leap forward in 83.
There's no question about it. We've been absolutely amazed with the way this season has started out. And that applies not only to the tremendous amount of new and very costly equipment that's running, but the number of increased sponsors that we've got in the program. It's just overwhelming. And, of course, as far as attendance is concerned, why, it's been up and looks like it's going to continue to go up.
You know, back in the middle to late 60s, the muscle car era, as it's become known, the factories were very much involved, quite an influence. Then they disappeared. They are back in 83. That's obvious here. How do you account for that?
Well, I think that's a part of the new movement to try to excite people into buying automobiles again. You know, we've gone through some very tough years as far as the auto manufacturing industry is concerned. And I think everybody has learned the lesson, the fact that there has to be a little bit more glamour, a little more dramatics, a little more excitement as far as car sales interest is concerned. So the factories are very actively involved now trying to create some new performance images. We know that the cars are smaller today and the engines are smaller, they're more economical, but we found that the performance is there. So we're very happy to see them back into our ranks, and certainly there's an awful lot of racers out there that are using their equipment.
Continued success to you and NHRA.
Thank you.
The semifinals are set for Top Fuel and Funny Car, and we'll be coming back to Gainesville, Florida in just a moment. Back at Gainesville Raceway, I'm Dave McClellan, along with Steve Evans and Tom Anderson. We'll make it into the semifinals. All the work for Alan Aronek and Jim Ouimet, his car owners, paid off. And it's about time, as the first 2 cars already completing their burnouts. Frank Hawley against Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn, the latest in a series of drivers for car owner Roland Leong, at the wheel of this Dodge Charger-bodied funny car. The Chi-Town Hustler, one of the most feared names in all of racing, based on last year's performance. when Frank Hawley won the World Championship, and it was this race and a win a year ago that sent him on his way. And Mike Dunn up in smoke. It is Frank Hawley into the finals. Hawley with a very consistent 5.94 second elapsed time. As we watch again, you'll see exactly what happens. The two cars lead fairly well, but the tires losing traction for Mike Dunn, and that is giving the race to Frank Hawley.
Well, Frank Hawley, tell me if I'm overusing the word consistency. A 5.94.
Well, it's off a couple hundred. You know what's strange? It's hard. How you can get out of breath in just a few seconds.
It's a little harder work than people might think. You're going into the final round for the second year in a row here.
Yeah, we just take it one round at a time, and we had to run Mike that time. Roland had run pretty good, and we haven't changed our battle plan at all. You know, things are about a tenth quicker because it's a year later, but we're just going to do the same old thing.
See you in the final.
Okay.
Steve will find out who he will be racing in the final. Will it be this man, Dale Poldy, or his competition, Tom Anderson? Poldy has had a good weekend thus far with his Warrior. Very consistent, 6.05 seconds in the first round, a 6.02 in the previous round. And Tom Anderson, we know his problems. He had to fire in qualifying. They had to put the car back together. They burned a few pistons in the round before, but they have been around the 6-second flat zone. So this could be a very close race to determine who will be the opponent for Frank Hawley in the finals of Funny Car at the Gator Nationals. Tom Anderson in the far lane. Dale Poldy in the near lane. And they're both up in smoke. Anderson makes a move to the guardrail. Poldy to the center line. Poldy stands on it again and smokes the tires. And what a race. Forget the time. That doesn't matter. The reactions of both drivers. Tom Anderson keeping it out of the guardrail. And Dale Poldy keeping it from crossing the center line. Look at the move by Anderson towards the guardrail. As Dale Poldy smoking the tires. Heads across the track towards the center line. Had either driver touched either the guardrail or the center line, they would have been out. But Poldy stands on it again, just smoking the tires in the middle of the course and wins the race.
Dale, some famous philosopher once said, I'd rather be lucky than good sometimes.
I'll take the luck any day. It seems like it's with me today.
Did you even know where Anderson was?
I had no idea. This thing came up, and I think it hit the wheelie bars and smoked the tires. And I couldn't see after that until it came down and straightened out.
Well, you're going to have a tough final round opponent in Frank Hawley.
He's always there, too. Every time. They're a tough group to beat.
That's the kind of consistency every team would like to develop, really.
You can bet on it. You got a good crew man right there with Austin Coyle, and he's a heck of a driver.
All right, now you're not going to have lane choice. Big factor?
I haven't had it all day.
And here you are.
Yeah, I'll take that luck again. Thanks.
No, you're not seeing doubles. These are two very similar cars, but with two different drivers. The team owner, now driving himself, Larry Miner, is in the far lane. The hired driver is Gary Beck in the right-hand lane. The question is, will it be a race? Earlier, Steve had a chance to talk to Larry and found out.
You recall the comments of Gary Beck at the end of the racetrack? Well, there's been a change in that battle plan, an exciting one. Car owner Larry Miner, we're going to have a race, right?
That's right. We're going to go for it.
The original plan, though, was to further back as far as points towards a world title.
Right. Well, that's our main objective. And I really kind of feel that we're going to make a good race out of it, but I hope Beck's ahead of me.
You do really, but you're not going to back off.
I hope I don't have to.
What a race this should be. Larry Miner has run 5.51 seconds. His hired driver, Gary Beck, has run a national record-setting 5.49 seconds. As Gary said earlier in the interview, they try to set up the cars identical, which means if everything is equal, they should run just the same. As Larry just said, it will be a race. Let's see what happens as the Larry and Gary show unfolds at the starting line in Top Fuel semifinals. And Larry Miner has some problems right at the start, but Gary Beck has got a great one. And this is just how great it is, 5.44 seconds, the quickest elapsed time in the history of the sport, and a new national record for Gary Beck. His team owner, Larry Miner, coasting to a stop as he slowly rolls through the speed trap at the finish line. Gary Beck getting out of his car, shaking his head.
Gary Beck comes out of the car, looks around for his good friend and car owner Larry Miner, and I can tell him right now that Larry apparently shook the tires very hard right off the starting line. But, my friend, you were again the world's quickest 5:44.
That's amazing, isn't it, Steve? It's hard to believe. But, you know, the track's good. We got a nice, cool afternoon here, and we have been working with the gear ratio of the car here a little bit, and we're just able to just run it as hard as we know how, and it just is hanging on.
I don't think there's any question who you'd like to race in the final, is there?
Yeah, I guess we order one. Should be both our cars let Pomona, so I guess we'll try to get her with one of these blue cars.
We're going to go back to the starting line and find out just who will race Gary Beck in the final.
Steve, when you talk about she and Top Fuel racing, it can be referring only to the pink car. The lady, Shirley Muldowney, the reigning world champion. And you talk about green matchup. Larry Miner against Gary Beck. How's Shirley Muldowney against her former crew chief, Connie Kalita sound? The winner of this, going against the quickest man in the history of the sport, Gary Beck. Both drivers just sort of sitting here. Nobody's making a move to the starting line. Now Shirley rolls in. Here comes Connie. And Connie Kalita pulls Shirley Muldowney off the starting line. She loses a bit of traction, and it's an upset win for Connie Kalita. The crowd cheering as Kalita moves into the final. A very respectable 5:66. We watch in replay and we'll see the margin of difference close to the starting line, and at the finish line, it is duplicated by a car length. Connie Kalita earning the right to face Gary Beck.
Connie Kalita. A little revenge, I guess, for the U.S. Nationals, huh?
Yes, it is.
That's as much fun as winning the race?
Well, it'd be better if it was in the finals. It'd make it a lot sweeter.
Well, everybody knows all those stories, but you had a real thrasher at the last minute.
Well, we had started the car and it had a leaky exhaust valve, and we had a porcelain underneath it, and we didn't catch it when we took the engine apart. So we popped the head back off and fixed it.
All right, now it's Gary Beck. I don't know if you heard his elapsed time, 5:44.
No, I'm protesting it because it was a bad time. I'm sure that there's a piece of something that got in front of the lights that gives that thing that quick. There ain't no way in the world it can be that quick.
Sounds impossible, but we know it's real, don't we?
God, his car's running good. He has really got a handle on it. It's amazing, and he's not hurting it either. It's phenomenal. He's really got his act together.
Well, if I know the bounty hunter, you'll blow this one right out of the frame to beat him.
I wouldn't do that.
Steve, don't bet on that. Connie Kalita has wasted her motors on far less than a Gator Nationals championship. So the finals are set in our three professional categories of Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. This lady, for the first time, watching the finals as a spectator. Races remain at the Gator Nationals, our professional finals. In Pro Stock Eliminator, a pair of Chevrolets. The reigning world champion, number one. In the white car in the near lane is Lee Shepard, driving for his car owners and partners, Rare and Morrison from Arlington, Texas. From Totowa, New Jersey, number two in the world last year and recent winner of the Winter Nationals, Frank Iaconio. Both cars powered by 500 cubic inch, 2 carburetors, gasoline-burning engine, and it's a red light start for Iaconio. The win automatically goes to Lee Shepard, his second in a row here at the Gator Nationals. At the starting line, the story is told as Lee Shepard, also with a great performance of a 768 at over 180 miles an hour. These full-bodied factory hot rods moving through that quarter mile at speeds over 180. The full-bodied funny cars, but with 2,500 horsepower of nitro-burning engine in front of the driver, Dale Faldy is facing Mr. Consistency at this event, the Chi-Town Hustler, Frank Hawley, the defending champion at the wheel. Hawley started his march to the World Championship title with a big win here 1 year ago. He has consistently been in the low 590s in every round of elimination. The Chi-Town Hustler last year making its first major effort at national event competition, and it paid off with the world champion title. Dale Faldy winning back here in 1978, was runner-up in 1981, and he's giving Hawley a run for the money. As they near the finish line, it is Hawley by just over the car length. Frank Hawley wins it. Pat Minnick's daughter, just happy as she can be. Sharon and Frank Hawley in a 592 remains with that consistency. In the replay, you see they are just side by side as they pass our starting line camera position. But at the finish line, approximately a car length and a half separating the two drivers.
The young Canadian Frank Hawley wasting no time coming out from under the Dodge Charger Chi-Town Hustler. Frank Hawley, the world champion. This is 2 in a row, much like Lee Shepard for Hawley. In fact, this was really the glory ground for this car, where it all started, their chase to the World Championship. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Steve. You spun the tires a lot in the middle.
Side-by-side 5-second runs. You ran a little bit quicker.
Really? What was it? Do you remember? I mean, I saw the car for a long time. And then after it got overspin the tires in the middle of the track, we just sailed on through like we have for the last few races.
The victories like this are so important from a cash flow standpoint for a car that doesn't have a major product emblazoned on the side and a 6-figure bank account.
Well, that's it, and someday we'll probably have the 6-figure bank account because
may win it all.
Yeah, well, if we don't do that, this is probably the best deal in auto racing is right here.
Absolutely, and here comes the crew. Austin Coyle that runs this car. Some say maybe a borderline genius. Congratulations, Austin. Another nice one.
The congratulations being paid to Frank Hawley, but at the starting line, the quickest man in drag racing history is trying to end a 16-month streak of no victories. Gary Beck has been the top qualifier at the last 6 NHRA national events, but he has not won a race since October of 1981. Connie Kalita, winner twice on the national event trail last season, has got his work cut out for him. He ran a 5.66 in the semifinals to defeat his former driver, Shirley Muldowney, but Gary Beck ran a 5.44. He's already run another 5.40, a 5.49. What will he do this time? He's just driving away from Connie Kalita, and Gary Beck wins the race with another 5.40, 5.49 seconds the last time, at over 251 miles an hour. Leaving the line, the blue car of Gary Beck not missing a beat. Kalita into problems. He shuts off, and Beck wins it.
Oh, and congratulations again to you and your wife, Penny, and to Larry Minor, and a happy crew that'll be down here in just a few minutes. Have you ever, short of that first win in 1972, have you ever enjoyed a weekend anymore at the drag races?
Well, it's so much work that, you know, that it's hard to understand the fun. Maybe we'll understand the fun tomorrow.
Gary Beck is your Gatornationals top fuel champion.
Steve, Gary Beck is back in that winner's circle after such a long dry spell. Steve Evans, this is Dave McClellan saying congratulations to all the Gatornationals champions. The executive producer of Diamond V Sports is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. The Gatornationals has been brought to you by Motorcraft. Quality parts for all makes of cars.